What's going on, family? It's your guy Boro. Alright, hold on, my bad, y'all. I really thought I was about to do a whole video with an ice cube, with a motherfucking ice cube in my mouth. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Anyways, it's your guy Boro, the Lucky Libra. Thank you for tuning into another episode, alright? As you can see by the title, we picking up the signs through the house series with Cancer in the third house, okay? Y'all can make sure to tap into my website to connect with the Lucky Libra, all right? And tap into my Patreon where I'm uploading every Tuesday, every Thursday, all right? Live streams every Sunday and more. Without further ado, boom, let's get right into it, all right? So what is the third house? Third house is an air house. Air house is dealing with relationships. What separates this air house from the other air houses? This air house deal with our familiar relationships, our, relationships that are in our immediate range, all right? Relationships, that we developed in our local environment, our adolescent experiences, the people, places, and things that we've connected to in our local environment, in the neighborhood that we grew up in. All right. The third house, we dealing with, emphasis on siblings here, information and knowledge that we gain in our third house. All right. And a lot of what we'd experience is like, going to school, just what we have experienced in our neighborhood. And ultimately, with all that being said, this shows us how we become a product of our environment, aka how we learn to communicate and interact with individuals based off of what we started dealing with, interacting in our familiar surroundings, with our siblings, with our friends, with the people at school, all right, with the people in the park across the street from my house. That's the third house. That playground you went to in your familiar surroundings, in your neighborhood, that's the third house. All right. The elementary, the zone school that you went to in your neighborhood, that's the third house. You feel me? I don't know about y'all, from New York City. We didn't do all that school bus shit. We didn't do all that. We ride the city bus and, like, you feel me? We walk to school. You feel me? So our schools being the third house. Sometimes y'all be leaving y'all third house a little bit to go to school and whatnot, depending on where you live at or whatnot. You feel me? So I don't know. It's a little different. But for the most part, y'all get it, man. Y'all get the gist of it. So that's what we're dealing with in the third house. We dealing with, that local environment, familiar faces and places, okay? And ultimately how it influences us to communicate, interact with others, and how we take that communication method into the 7th house and the 11th house. So, Cancer in the third house. Cancer's cardinal water, the leader of the water sign, ruled by the moon, very aggressive, strong intent here. The moon deal with reacting, responding, the emotions, connecting, all right? So when we got Cancer in the third house, in some type of shape or form, you may deal with emotional roller coasters when it comes to the relationships of your siblings and friends at an early age. You may develop a strong sacred, because, Cancer deal with privacy, okay? So when it comes to connections and friendships and relationships that you develop in the third house, they become very sacred to you, all right? To the point you may start to feel like you could open up to some of these friends. And early in life, Cancer in the third house is going to realize they can't open up the inner feelings and thoughts to anybody. Cancer in the third house realizes that shit early. Because the third house is dealing with interacting with your familiar surroundings, getting out and connecting and relating. So if Cancer is such a private energy, there's going to be time. Most likely it's going to be a time with Cancer in the third house where it's dealing with a reserved energy, dealing with communicating and relating to others. But then it might take that, leap of faith to open up some inner feelings and thoughts with another individual, and then realize, like, damn, that it ends up being an energy that's not reciprocated. They're not understood here, or they realize they open up to the wrong individual, or they tell some shit that really meant a lot to them, something about the emotion, something about the home environment, something that was becoming a trauma at the moment, and then that got gossiped, that got connected and related to somebody else. So Cancer in the third house could deal with that shit. This house is going to be ruled by the moon. So when you got the moon ruling your third house, a lot of the time, there's going to be an emotional connection you have when it comes to your siblings and your relatives. Maybe real tight-knitted with your siblings, or you may be going through a lot of ups and downs with emotions dealing with your siblings, depending on your relationship. In some type of shape or form, Cancer is pulling emotion out of this house. So, it could be the situation with your siblings pulling emotion out of this house. You caring about the connection with your siblings and relatives to the point that it's very frustrating when these things aren't going the way you want them to smoothly go. The same thing with your familiar friends that you develop in school, in your neighborhood, your neighbors. Is like, you get connected to them to the point that it's like you start to hold them up to a certain standard, and it could be a little frustrating when you feel like that same the way you put your heart and emotion to the relationship, that shit ain't reciprocated. Cancer's water is a private sign, so it's going to be reserved. So this person is naturally going to be in a state where especially influenced by the things that they experience in a local environment, familiar surroundings, when they go to school, how they interact with their siblings and whatnot, and the people that was close to them. It's going to develop energy where they start to be in a more of a receiver state. They want to understand someone before they push out. They want to feel their relationship some more before they push out. So now Cancer in the third house starts to develop a real tight circle here. This is my this may be my what you call it, Aquarius, not Aquarius rising, I'm tripping. My Taurus risings. Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. This may be my Taurus risings. Could possibly be my Aries risings, or it could possibly maybe be my Gemini risings, depending on your interceptions and whatnot, depending on your degrees by default. But Cancer here may have a high reactionary, it's ruled by the moon, so it may have a high reactionary influence when it comes to their friends or whatnot. So they really ride for their friends. They willing to ride for their friends. They willing to the reason why they willing to ride for their friends is because, to be honest with y'all, Cancer in the third house might not have a lot of friends. It might not come into this lifetime just super interacting with so much people or being open to connecting and making relationship with so much people. It could be very, very close knitted and small circle-ish with Cancer in the third house, because it can't allow itself to start being. It can't. Cancer deal with being comfortable, guys. Cancer deal with emotional stability. So how are you gonna be comfortable and within your emotions, just having anybody around you? Especially people Cancer in the third house don't like anybody feeling like it could be familiar around them if it ain't familiar, period. Okay? So with Cancer in that third house is like, the people that they came up with end up being a lot of the people that once again, a lot of the time, this is my Taurus rising. The people that come up with that Taurus rising, the people that come up with that Cancer in the third house, they cousins that was at grandma's house, like family members become the close friends here. Cousins become the close friends here. Siblings become the close friends here. Real talk. A lot of this time, Cancer don't play that just being friends with anybody. Nah, hell no. Hell no. And then it's cardinal, so they lead too. So they'll lead with the emotions, aka if the emotions ain't feeling right about something in the third house, it's like, fuck it, I don't need that friendship. It already rubbed me the wrong way, it already made me uncomfortable. I'm good, I'm straight. That's Cancer in the third house for you right there. That's Cancer for the third house. This person is prone to express themselves through their heart space. So they may not be the most active communicator, but when they communicate, it comes from here. When they communicate, it's coming from some type of emotional conviction. So be careful if you got Cancer in the third house, the water in your air houses, that you're not projecting so much of the emotion when you communicate. But for the most part, Cancer develops a wise way of dealing with how it expresses and communicates the subconscious here, especially because it may have been them situations which we opened up early in the video saying, maybe them situations where early in life you probably opened up about too much shit. Not too much, but you opened up in a way where that time you told some shit that really was serious to you, really mattered, and you thought that friend was just gonna keep it between you, and they ended up gossiping about that shit or whatnot. And then it's like that started having you develop a way where now you're more sure about keeping shit to yourself, being more private with your thoughts. All right, dealing with more discernment with how you communicate your inner thoughts or whatnot to certain individuals. All right, and this becomes their communication method here a bit. You know, private communicators. All right. You know, it takes a time for them to warm up and exchange some inner thoughts and feelings with Cancer in this third house. And they don't mind being close knitted to people they came up with. No new friends, no new friends, no new friends, no. Shout out to Drake. That's that Cancer in the third house anthem right there. That's like Cancer in the third house anthem, Scorpio in the third house anthem. There's a couple of signs in the third house anthem. But yeah, Cancer don't be caring about that. Intuitive ass communicators. Don't be thinking don't be thinking that you could just come around and saying whatever like they not gonna remember that. With Cancer rules the past. Don't think that they gonna not remember the shit that that you communicate and relate to them. With Cancer in the third house. And shit, if anything, they could take that shit. They could take the things that you communicate to them more seriously than you think they are. If you the type of person like you just a Libra, a Gemini, and you just talk shit all day, the Cancer in the third house is gonna take some of them things more seriously than you think. And it's also because some of their psyche is to communicate seriously, communicate emotions that they really have, inner thoughts, and that they really, you know, mean some shit to them. So you got to be conscious with them with how they talk about things. I mean, how you talk about things. All right. So excuse me, y'all. If y'all was getting mad, I was chewing on ice and shit the whole video, but for the most part, that's Cancer in the third house. All right, guys. So y'all make sure to tap into my website to connect with the Lucky Libra. Tap into my Patreon, where I'm uploading every Tuesday and Thursday and getting into live streams every Sunday and getting into more. Until then, family, we picking it up with Leo in the third house. All right. Peace.